Listen to me. Your emotions will lie to you. They'll tell you to quit when it gets hard. They'll tell you you're not ready, that it's not the right time, that maybe tomorrow you'll start. But tomorrow never comes for the person who lives by their emotions. Winners don't wait for the perfect feeling. Winners act in spite of it. Discipline is not about feeling good. It's about doing what needs to be done, whether you feel like it or not. That's the line between average and unstoppable. That's the line between people who dream and people who win. You see, emotion is energy in motion. It's powerful, but it's unstable. It changes with the weather, with your mood, with what someone said to you that day. But discipline is built. It's not sexy. It's not loud. It's the quiet, consistent force that moves mountains when passion fades. There will be mornings when you don't want to get up. There will be days when everything in you screams to stop, to rest, to take it easy. That's where the battle is won. The battlefield isn't out there. It's in your mind. When you choose discipline over emotion, you are training your mind to lead and your feelings to follow. Ask yourself, do you control your emotions or do your emotions control you? Because the truth is, your emotions are like wild horses. They can take you off a cliff if you let them. But discipline is the reins that guide that power. Without it, you crash. With it, you soar. The greatest athletes, the greatest leaders, the greatest creators, they all feel fear, doubt, laziness, frustration. They all have days they don't feel motivated, but they move anyway. That's the secret. They don't let their emotions make the decision. Their standards do. When you're disciplined, you don't ask, do I feel like it? You say, what needs to be done? And then you do it. You don't wait for the mood. You create momentum. You don't chase motivation. You rely on mastery. Discipline is freedom. Freedom from excuses. Freedom from the emotional roller coaster that keeps most people stuck. Freedom from the trap of waiting to feel right before you act. Because when you act first, the feeling follows. Your emotions are temporary, but your results are permanent. Every time you choose discipline, you're building a new identity, a stronger, sharper, more powerful version of you. Every rep, every early morning, every sacrifice is a brick in the foundation of your greatness. You want to win. Then stop negotiating with your emotions. Stop waiting for motivation to knock on your door. You won't find it there. You find victory in consistency. You find strength in doing the hard things when no one's watching. You find greatness in the quiet moments of self-control. Remember this, emotion might start the fire, but discipline keeps it burning when the wind hits. When life tests you, when people doubt you, when you're exhausted and alone, it's discipline that gets you back up. So make the choice today, discipline over emotion, because your feelings come and go, but your commitment, that's what defines you. That's how you win every single time. Emotion is temporary, but discipline is permanent. Every emotion you feel is fleeting. It rises, it fades, it shifts with circumstance. One moment you're fired up, ready to take on the world, and the next you're tired, uncertain, distracted. That's the trap of emotion. It feels powerful, but it's unstable. If you build your life on how you feel, your foundation will always be shaking. Discipline, though, it's steady, it's unshakable. It's the anchor that holds you in place when the storm of emotion tries to pull you under. It's the quiet force that keeps you aligned with your goals when your mind screams for comfort. Emotion can inspire you to start, but discipline ensures you finish. Emotion will whisper. Take it easy today. You deserve a break. Discipline says, do what must be done, because the work doesn't care about your mood. Emotion feeds on comfort. Discipline feeds on progress. When you understand that, you begin to separate yourself from the masses. Most people live in reaction. They ride the emotional roller coaster, waiting to feel motivated, waiting to feel ready. But the truth is, readiness never comes. If you wait for the perfect feeling, you'll wait forever. Discipline is what moves you forward, even when everything inside you resists. Think about every great achievement in your life. None of them came from emotion alone. They came from consistency, from showing up even when it was inconvenient. Emotion gives you the spark, but discipline keeps the fire alive. Without it, the spark dies, and all that potential goes to waste. Discipline is what makes you unstoppable, because it teaches you to act without needing permission from your feelings. It's what transforms effort into excellence and intention into impact. When you rely on emotion, you live at the mercy of circumstance. If life feels good, you move forward. If it feels bad, you stop. But when you live with discipline, you take back control. You stop waiting for the world to be easy. You stop depending on perfect conditions. You learn to create momentum in chaos, to push forward in uncertainty, to rise when everything in you says stay down. Emotion reacts, discipline decides. That's the difference between drifting and driving, between wandering and winning. Discipline is built, not born. It's not something you magically have. It's something you forge every day through repetition, through commitment, through the small choices you make when no one's watching. Each time you choose discipline over comfort, you strengthen your character. Each time you say no to excuses, you build mental muscle. It's like steel. It hardens in the fire. You don't become disciplined by waiting to feel strong. You become disciplined by doing what's hard when you feel weak. Emotion will always fluctuate. It's part of being human. There will be days when you feel unstoppable and days when you can barely drag yourself out of bed. But if you have discipline, you move regardless. You train yourself to act independent of your feelings. That's power. That's freedom. When you can detach from emotion and still execute, you're no longer controlled by it. You're in command of it. You learn to use emotion as fuel, not direction. You can feel fear and still step forward. You can feel tired and still perform. You can feel doubt and still deliver. That's the essence of mastery. Most people confuse motivation with progress. Motivation is the high that emotion gives you. It's intoxicating, but it fades fast. Discipline is the system that keeps you moving when that high disappears. It's doing the reps, following the plan, making the call, writing the page, staying consistent when the excitement dies down. Because emotion is what gets you started. But discipline is what keeps you going when the excitement turns into grind. It's in those moments of grind that greatness is built. Emotion tells you to seek comfort. Discipline tells you to seek growth. And growth never happens in comfort. Growth is found in the repetition, the resistance, the refusal to give in to temporary feelings. Every time you push through discomfort, you're teaching yourself that you can trust your word. That's what real confidence is. Not feeling good, but knowing that no matter how you feel, you'll still show up. Confidence is built in consistency. Emotion can't give you that. Only discipline can. Emotion fades, but the results of discipline last. When you're disciplined, you don't chase pleasure, you chase purpose. You learn to delay gratification, to sacrifice short-term comfort for long-term fulfillment. That's why the disciplined win. They play the long game. They understand that emotions come and go, but the work compounds. Every day you choose discipline, you're stacking bricks of strength, focus, and integrity. One day you look back and realize the life you built didn't come from bursts of emotion, but from steady, unshakable commitment. There's nothing wrong with feeling emotion. It's what makes you alive. But don't let it drive the car. Let discipline take the wheel. Emotion can ride shotgun. It can bring the passion, the energy, the drive, but it should never decide the direction. When you let discipline lead, you create a life that's not dependent on mood, motivation, or circumstance. You create momentum that lasts. Because emotion is like the wind. It shifts without warning. Discipline is like the compass. It always points true north. In the end, emotion will tell you what's easy. Discipline will tell you what's necessary. Emotion will make you react. Discipline will make you rise. And when everything feels uncertain, when motivation runs dry, when fear and doubt cloud your mind, it's not emotion that will save you. It's the power of doing what must be done simply because you said you would. That's how you win. Winners act despite how they feel. That's the truth that separates those who dream from those who achieve. Everyone feels fear. Everyone feels doubt. Everyone feels tired, unmotivated, or uncertain at some point. But winners move anyway. They understand that feelings are not commands. They're signals, and signals can be ignored when they don't serve your mission. The average person waits for the right emotion before taking action, while the winner acts first and lets the emotion catch up later. That's the gap between potential and power. When you act despite how you feel, you take your power back. You're no longer controlled by the emotional waves that rise and fall with life's challenges. You're not relying on a good day or perfect circumstances to move forward. You're relying on your commitment. Winners understand that commitment doesn't depend on mood. It depends on purpose. The mood may say, stay comfortable. The purpose says, keep moving. And when those two voices battle, the winner listens to purpose every single time. There will be days when the fire burns low, when everything feels like it's against you, when your own mind becomes the loudest enemy. That's when winners separate themselves. They don't wait to feel ready because they know readiness is an illusion. You're never ready to face pain, to face resistance, to face uncertainty, but you do it anyway. That's what acting despite emotion looks like. It's waking up when you're exhausted, pushing through when your heart isn't in it, choosing to show up when no one would blame you for staying down. That's where victory is built. Your emotions are temporary guests. Your actions are lasting imprints. The world doesn't reward feelings. It rewards results. You don't get remembered for how you felt. You get remembered for what you did. Winners don't chase comfort. They chase progress. They've learned to convert emotion into motion. When they feel fear, they see it as energy to fuel courage. When they feel doubt, they turn it into curiosity and strategy. They don't suppress emotion. They master it, channel it, and move through it with purpose. The average person lets emotion dictate effort. If they feel inspired, they give their all. If they feel tired, they give less. But the winner gives the same relentless effort no matter what the emotional weather is, because consistency, not intensity, builds greatness. It's easy to give everything on the good days. It's powerful to give everything on the bad ones. That's what acting despite emotion means. It's the discipline to move forward whether it's raining, burning, or storming inside your mind. The mind is tricky. It will justify inaction in 1,000 clever ways. It will tell you to wait for the right time, the right feeling, the right sign. But the right time never comes. Winners understand that waiting for motivation is a trap because emotion is unpredictable. They don't need to feel like doing it. They just do it. They've trained themselves to associate action with identity. They don't ask, do I feel ready? They tell themselves, this is who I am. This is what I do. And when identity becomes action, emotion loses its control. The power of acting despite emotion lies in momentum. Once you start, energy builds. Once you take one small step, the next becomes easier. Emotion might resist, but action rewires the mind. It reminds you that you are in charge, that your body and mind respond to command, not comfort. Winners understand this psychology. They don't negotiate with feelings. They lead them. They know the first few moments of resistance are the hardest, but beyond that lies freedom, confidence, and clarity. There's a deep sense of pride that comes from acting when you didn't want to. It's in those moments you earn your own respect. You stop needing validation because you know you're doing what's required, not what's convenient. Emotion will always whisper shortcuts, but winners don't take them. They understand that shortcuts cut results. They face the grind because they know the grind builds character. Acting despite emotion is how you forge a mindset that nothing can break. Fear, doubt, laziness, these emotions will never disappear. The difference is how you respond. Winners don't fight emotions, they move with them. Fear says stop, but they step forward. Doubt says you can't, but they prove it wrong. Laziness says later, but they act now. Each time they choose action over emotion, they reinforce power over weakness. Each choice becomes a rep in mental strength, a vote for the person they want to become. Emotion is human, it's not the enemy. The problem is when you let it lead. Winners feel it all, but they don't bow to it. They know that feelings are data, not direction. Just because something feels uncomfortable doesn't mean it's wrong. Growth always feels uncomfortable. Progress always feels uncertain. The mind resists change because it craves safety, but the winner understands that the place where fear shows up is often the exact place they need to go. When you act despite emotion, you tap into something deeper than motivation. You tap into drive. Drive is the internal engine that doesn't need a good day to run. It's powered by vision, by discipline, by a relentless standard. That's what sustains winners through the long nights, the failures, the rejections, the losses. While others crumble because they don't feel like continuing, winners rise because they don't depend on feelings to continue. They depend on decision. Decision is the root of all progress. There's a quiet power in choosing action over emotion. You stop being reactive and start being intentional. You stop being tossed around by moods, opinions, and outcomes. You become the force that moves through life instead of the object moved by life. That's where strength lives. Winners don't wait for courage. They act, and courage shows up. They don't wait for confidence. They act, and confidence grows. They don't wait for clarity. They act, and clarity reveals itself through motion. Everything you want lies on the other side of that first action you take when you least feel like it. When you act despite emotion, you begin to trust yourself in a new way. You realize that your feelings can't stop you, that you can still move forward even when it hurts, even when it's messy. That's when you stop being fragile. That's when you stop living by impulse and start living by intention. Winners know emotions come and go, but action leaves a trail. Every single act of discipline adds up. Every single choice to move through discomfort builds resilience. That's why winners win. It's not that they don't feel fear or fatigue. It's that they never let it make their decisions. Discipline creates freedom. Emotion creates chaos. Most people don't understand that real freedom doesn't come from doing whatever you feel like doing. It comes from mastering yourself enough to do what must be done even when you don't feel like it. The world sells the idea that freedom is about following your feelings, about doing what makes you happy in the moment, about chasing pleasure and avoiding pain. But that's not freedom. That's slavery to emotion. True freedom is being able to act with power and clarity regardless of how you feel inside. Discipline is what gives you that power. Discipline is the bridge between chaos and control, between drifting and direction, between living impulsively and living intentionally. Emotion is wild, unpredictable, unstable. It changes with the weather, with your environment, with the way someone looks at you, with the outcome of the day. When you build your life on emotion, you're building on sand. Everything shifts. One setback, one rejection, one bad mood, and your whole foundation shakes. But when you build your life on discipline, it's like building on rock. No matter what storm comes, you remain solid because your actions are not based on feelings, they're based on standards. Emotion reacts to the moment, but discipline responds to the mission. Discipline gives you structure, and structure creates freedom. It might sound like a paradox, but the person who disciplines themselves to wake up early, to train, to work, to stay focused, is the one who experiences the most peace. Because discipline eliminates decision fatigue. It removes the chaos of should I or shouldn't I. It replaces confusion with clarity. When you have clear standards, you stop wasting energy negotiating with yourself. You don't need to ask if you'll do the work. You already decided long ago that you will. That decision frees your mind from constant emotional tug of war. Emotion-driven people live in chaos. They're inconsistent. One day they're full of motivation and passion. The next day they're drained and doubtful. Their actions depend on their mood, and their results depend on luck. They can't build momentum because every time emotion dips, effort disappears. But disciplined people don't need to feel good to do good. They move with purpose. They stay steady when others panic. They stay focused when others get distracted. They have order inside, and that order creates power. Discipline is not a cage. It's the key to escape the cage of inconsistency. It's what separates temporary excitement from lasting success. When you live by emotion, you're constantly chasing the next high, the next burst of inspiration, the next dopamine hit, the next reason to start again. But when you live by discipline, you don't need a reason. You are the reason. You've set a standard, and that standard becomes your anchor. You don't rely on motivation because you've built momentum. Every day you show up, no matter how you feel, and that consistency compounds into freedom. The freedom discipline brings isn't just about success, it's about peace. When you know you've done the work, when you've honored your commitments, there's no guilt, no regret, no internal war. You walk lighter because you trust yourself. Emotion creates chaos because it constantly pulls you in different directions. It makes you question yourself, second guess your path, compare your journey to others. Discipline quiets that noise. It simplifies life. It says, this is what I do. This is who I am. This is what I stand for. There's power in that simplicity. There's peace in that order. Think about the people you admire most. They're not the ones who followed every emotional impulse. They're the ones who stayed disciplined through uncertainty. The athletes who trained when no one watched. The leaders who made the hard decisions. The creators who kept working when no one believed. They built freedom through consistency. They earned control over their craft, their time, their mind. That's the kind of freedom emotion can never give you because emotion is reactive. It makes you live in constant response to the world instead of leading it. Discipline is not about punishment, it's about alignment. It aligns your actions with your values and your vision. When you're disciplined, you're not pulled around by temporary desires because your long-term goals are clear. Emotion says, do what feels good now. Discipline says, do what will make you proud later. Emotion seeks comfort. Discipline seeks progress. Emotion looks for escape. Discipline builds endurance. Every time you choose discipline, you move closer to mastery. Every time you choose emotion, you move closer to chaos. People think discipline limits freedom because they confuse freedom with indulgence. But indulgence is not freedom. It's dependency. If you can't go a day without giving in to every emotional urge, you're not free. You're trapped. True freedom is being able to say no when your emotions scream yes. It's having the control to delay gratification, to resist distractions, to focus on what matters. That's real strength. Discipline gives you ownership over your choices. It gives you command over your time, your energy, your destiny. Emotion creates chaos because it's impulsive. It makes you act before you think. It makes you chase temporary relief over lasting growth. It makes you quit when things get uncomfortable. But discipline teaches you to stay calm under pressure. It gives you a system, a rhythm, a sense of control. When life gets chaotic, the disciplined person doesn't crumble. They rely on their habits. When emotions rise, they don't react. They return to their routine. That's why disciplined people thrive in situations that break others. They've trained themselves to move through storms with stability. Discipline is freedom because it allows you to live on your own terms. It allows you to build a life you choose instead of one that's dictated by feelings, opinions, or circumstances. It allows you to be consistent when others are inconsistent, focused when others are distracted, strong when others are weak. Emotion might make you feel alive in the moment, but discipline keeps you alive in the long run. Emotion burns fast and fades quickly. Discipline burns steady and lasts forever. When you're driven by discipline, you stop chasing control over external things. You master the internal. You learn that the real chaos is not outside you, it's inside you. The noise, the self-doubt, the excuses, the procrastination, they all come from emotion running unchecked. But when you cultivate discipline, you bring order to that inner chaos. You create boundaries with yourself. You create structure around your goals. And structure doesn't limit you, it liberates you. It gives you direction. It gives you flow. It allows you to move with power instead of panic. Emotion says, I don't feel like it. Discipline says, do it anyway. Emotion says, I'm tired. Discipline says, one more round. Emotion says, it's not fair. Discipline says, figure it out. The moment you choose discipline over emotion, you move from chaos to clarity, from confusion to confidence, from reaction to creation. You stop waiting for life to feel right and start making it right, because the truth is simple. Discipline creates freedom. Emotion creates chaos. Consistency beats motivation every single time. Motivation is a spark. It's an emotional high that gets you started, but it doesn't last. It fades as quickly as it comes. You feel motivated after a good speech, after a win, after a compliment, but the moment life hits you with resistance, that motivation evaporates. Consistency, on the other hand, doesn't rely on how you feel. It's the muscle that keeps moving forward when motivation runs dry. It's the daily repetition that compounds into mastery. It's the habit that carries you through the storms of doubt, fear, and fatigue. Anyone can act when they feel good, but very few can act when they don't, and that's what separates the successful from the stuck. Consistency is what transforms average effort into extraordinary outcomes. Motivation might make you lift a weight once, but consistency builds strength over years. Motivation might get you to start a business, but consistency keeps it alive when profits dip and enthusiasm fades. It's not about how excited you are to begin, it's about how committed you are to continue. Every single time you choose consistency over comfort, you reinforce the belief that you are capable of following through. That's where confidence is born, not in the bursts of energy, but in the quiet grind of repetition. Motivation is emotional, consistency is logical. Motivation depends on external factors, music, words, people's success. But consistency depends on internal standards. Motivation asks, do I feel like it? Consistency asks, what's required of me? Motivation is a feeling. Consistency is a decision. The problem is that most people never build consistency because they're addicted to the feeling of motivation. They chase that rush of inspiration, waiting for the perfect moment to act, the right energy to start, but that's a losing game. The winners are the ones who do the work when the mood is gone, who show up when no one's watching, who keep moving when everything feels slow. Consistency isn't glamorous. It's repetitive, it's boring, it's silent. It's early mornings and late nights. It's doing the same task over and over until it becomes second nature. It's unsexy discipline, but that's exactly why it works. Because while everyone else is chasing new excitement, the consistent ones are building momentum. They're stacking progress day after day, quietly compounding effort into excellence. It's not the person who works the hardest once that wins. It's the person who works steadily every day, no matter how small the step. That's how success is built slowly, consistently, deliberately. Motivation gives you energy, but consistency gives you results. You can't build muscle by working out once. You can't master a skill by practicing when you feel like it. You can't transform your life by making occasional bursts of effort. Progress is the product of consistency. Every single action you take adds up. Even the small, seemingly insignificant steps matter because consistency compounds. One disciplined day leads to another. One habit reinforces the next, and before you know it, you've created unstoppable momentum. The truth is, consistency is the ultimate equalizer. You don't need to be the most talented, the smartest, or the strongest. You just need to keep showing up. Talent can give you a head start, but without consistency, it fades. Passion can give you a push, but without consistency, it burns out. Motivation can light a fire, but without consistency, that fire dies. The world is full of people who started strong and disappeared, but the ones who stay, the ones who win, are the ones who remain consistent long after the initial excitement is gone. Consistency is what keeps you grounded when emotions fluctuate. There will be days when you're on fire and days when you feel empty, but consistency doesn't care. It doesn't ask for permission from your emotions. It simply demands that you show up and do what you said you would. That's how you build integrity with yourself. Every time you follow through, even when it's inconvenient, you're proving to yourself that your word means something. You're training your mind to trust your own commitment. That's how strong character is formed, not in moments of inspiration, but in the moments of resistance. Motivation is external. Consistency is internal. You can be motivated by others, but you can't be consistent for someone else. It has to come from you. It has to come from a deep decision that says, I'm in this for the long haul. The consistent person doesn't need to shout about their goals because their results speak for them. They don't get distracted by comparison because they're focused on the process. They understand that greatness isn't built in a day. It's built in the repetition of thousands of ordinary days done with extraordinary commitment. Consistency is powerful because it builds trust in the unseen. You might not see the results right away. You might not feel progress every single day. But consistency ensures that growth is happening beneath the surface. Just like a seed doesn't sprout the moment it's planted, your actions take time to manifest. Motivation wants instant results. Consistency understands the long game. It teaches patience. It teaches resilience. It teaches faith and effort. Every consistent action is a declaration that you're playing for legacy, not just for a moment of excitement. When you rely on motivation, you're living reactively. You wait for a feeling to trigger action. But when you build consistency, you become proactive. You act first and the feeling follows. That's the secret most people miss. You don't need to feel motivated to take action. You need to take action to feel motivated. Action fuels emotion, not the other way around. Once you understand that, you stop waiting for perfect moments and start creating them through consistent movement. Consistency doesn't demand perfection. It demands persistence. You will fail, you will fall short, you will have off days, but the consistent person gets back up. They don't let a bad day become a bad week or a bad week become a bad month. They reset, refocus, and return. That's what makes them unstoppable. The ability to return no matter how many times they fall. Motivation dies the moment failure hits, but consistency adapts and continues. That's real strength. In every field, sports, business, art, personal growth, the people who rise to the top aren't the ones who had the biggest bursts of motivation. They're the ones who built systems, habits, and rituals that kept them consistent even in chaos. They built a rhythm that doesn't break under pressure. They understand that success is a rhythm, not a rush. You don't sprint your way to greatness. You build it one steady step at a time. Consistency creates identity. When you do something long enough, it becomes who you are. You no longer need to force it because it's automatic. You stop thinking about doing it. You just do it. That's when transformation becomes permanent. That's when discipline turns into lifestyle. That's when effort turns into excellence. Motivation may get you started, but only consistency gets you there. That's the truth every winner lives by, because consistency beats motivation every single time. Your standards, not your feelings, determine your success. The difference between those who achieve greatness and those who stay stuck is not luck, not talent, not opportunity. It's the standards they live by. Your feelings are temporary, unpredictable, and easily influenced by your environment. But your standards are your foundation. They define what you tolerate, how you act, and how far you go when things get difficult. The moment your standards rise above your emotions, your life begins to shift. Because it's not what you want that shapes your destiny. It's what you're willing to demand of yourself, regardless of how you feel. Feelings are fleeting. They come and go with the weather, with the opinions of others, with your circumstances. One moment you feel confident, the next you doubt yourself. One day you're driven, the next you're lazy. But if your actions depend on how you feel, you'll live in a constant loop of inconsistency. Winners don't live by feelings, they live by standards. They don't wait to feel right, they do what's right. Their standards are the guardrails that keep them aligned with their vision, even when their emotions try to pull them off course. When your standards are clear, you stop negotiating with excuses. You stop justifying mediocrity. You stop lowering the bar when things get uncomfortable. You don't allow your emotions to dictate your behavior because you've already decided who you are and what you expect from yourself. That decision creates strength. Most people fail not because they're weak, but because they keep lowering their standards to match their emotions instead of raising their emotions to meet their standards. Every person has a set of standards they live by, whether they realize it or not. The question is, are yours serving you or sabotaging you? If your standard is, I'll do it when I feel like it, you'll never go far. If your standard is, I only give my best when conditions are perfect, you'll never build resilience. But if your standard is, I do what's required no matter what, you'll create unstoppable momentum. The level of your standards defines the level of your life. You don't rise to your goals, you fall to your standards. Your standards are a reflection of your self-respect. When you hold yourself to a high standard, it's because you know you're capable of more. It's not arrogance, it's ownership. It's refusing to accept less than your best. People with low standards let their emotions, habits, and surroundings control them. People with high standards lead themselves with clarity and purpose. They don't let temporary feelings compromise long-term growth. When everyone else is slowing down, they keep going. When everyone else is complaining, they're executing. Their standards demand it. Feelings make you reactive. Standards make you proactive. Feelings change with every situation, but standards remain constant. When you live by feelings, you'll always be at the mercy of your mood. But when you live by standards, you act from principle, not emotion. You no longer ask, do I want to? You ask, is this aligned with my standard? And that question changes everything. It eliminates hesitation, confusion, and inconsistency. You become predictable to yourself in the best way possible. You know what you'll do because you know what you expect. Raising your stand doesn't mean being perfect. It means refuse to settle for average. It means demanding excellence from yourself, even when it's inconvenient. It means showing up when you'd rather stay comfortable. That's where growth happens. It's not in the big, flashy moments. It's in the daily choices where no one's watching. Your standards are the invisible rules you live by, the unspoken code that governs your habits, your discipline, your consistency. When those standards rise, everything around you starts to rise too. Your results, your mindset, your relationships, your energy. High standards are uncomfortable because they require sacrifice. They require you to let go of excuses, to separate from people who don't share your vision, to outgrow environments that reward mediocrity. But that discomfort is the birthplace of greatness. It's the friction that forges strength. People who live by emotions avoid that friction. They seek ease and validation. People who live by standards embrace the friction because they know it's refining them into something stronger. Every time you honor your standards, you build self-trust. You prove to yourself that your word means something. That trust becomes confidence. It becomes power. Because when you trust yourself to act beyond how you feel, you become unstoppable. You're no longer dependent on external motivation because your standards fuel you from within. They remind you that you don't need to feel ready. You just need to follow through. The reason most people never reach their potential isn't because they lack ability. It's because they keep letting their emotions negotiate their standards. They say they want success, but they tolerate laziness. They say they want change, but they tolerate excuses. They say they want excellence, but they tolerate inconsistency. You can't have high-level outcomes with low-level standards. Every area of your life rises or falls to the level of what you're willing to accept. If you raise your standards, your environment, your behavior, and your results eventually align with them. Your feelings will always try to talk you out of hard work. They'll always whisper, take it easy today, or you can start again tomorrow. But standards speak louder when you've built the discipline to live by them. They say, do it anyway. Show up. Stay sharp. That voice becomes your compass. It keeps you moving when the path gets dark, because when your standards are non-negotiable, you stop quitting on yourself. You stop letting the highs and lows of emotion dictate your effort. You become consistent, focused, and resilient. There's a reason champions seem calm under pressure. They're not driven by emotion. They're guided by standards. They've rehearsed excellence so many times that it's automatic. Their effort doesn't depend on the crowd, on praise, on mood. It's constant. That's why they win repeatedly. Success isn't about doing great things once. It's about holding yourself to great standards every single day, especially when no one's watching. Your standards determine your identity. When you decide what's acceptable and what's not, you create the boundaries that shape who you become. If your standard is discipline, you'll act like a disciplined person. If your standard is growth, you'll seek out challenge. If your standard is mediocrity, you'll settle without realizing it. The beauty is you have full control over those standards. You can raise them at any moment. You can decide right now that your future self deserves better than what your emotions want right now. That decision shifts everything. Your standards are the ultimate measure of who you are, not your words, not your intentions, not your feelings. They reveal your true character. Because when it's hard, when you're tired, when it hurts, your standards show up. And in that moment, they either lift you higher or let you fall. Feelings come and go, but standards remain. And that's why your standards, not your feelings, determine your success.